Tonight, you need to see this, because what you see here is an escalation by the Republican state government of Georgia cracking down on voting rights, literally arresting a state senator who is black, which is relevant to the racially charged voter suppression now breaking out in the state. And she was arrested for knocking on the governor's door as he signed this new voting crackdown.
What did she do? What did she do? Can y'all cite the code? What did she do?
Where are you taking me?
What did she do?
Stop. Where are you taking me?
What did she do? What did she do?
What did she do? You can hear the protesters asking in that footage by journalist Ari Melber. What did she do? Well, here's the answer in a New York Times headline. Representative arrested for knocking on governor's door. That's what she did. Tonight, we can report there are new protests in Georgia and around the nation. Civil rights leaders say all of this smacks of 50s-era Jim Crow abuse, albeit updated to a 2.0 version for this modern era. And that critique, that strong language, that level of moral stakes has now been endorsed by President Biden himself, condemning the new law's most extreme provisions, like making it a crime to provide water to people waiting in line to vote.
It's an atrocity. They passed a law saying you can't provide water for people standing in line. This is nothing but punitive, designed to keep people from voting. You can't provide water for people about to vote. Give me a break.
The law restricts voting by adding hurdles that are not needed legally for accuracy or fairness, makes voting by mail harder with an ID rule. It cuts drop boxes, which is how many voted, including the governor who signed this law. It criminalizes, as mentioned, water and food for people in line and ends voting before many get out of work to vote. Georgia's new senator says all of this action goes back to Donald Trump's big lie.
It is that big lie that is the fuel for these terrible voter suppression laws that we see coming out of the state of Georgia. And we have to push hard against the big lie and make sure that we secure the democracy for all of our citizens.
That big lie from Donald Trump. So this is very important tonight. We covered this, of course, as the news broke last night, and we covered it before this thing even passed. Voter suppression tactics are very old in America, but this law does also respond directly to Trump as a factual matter because it does something very strange from any legal approach to securing elections. It strips powers from the top Georgia elections official who stood up to Trump when he wanted to steal the Georgia race. That individual, by the way, happens to be a Republican. It takes power from the Secretary of State, which means the next time a would-be autocrat demands that Georgia officials find him some votes, there may be more ways within the system to actually do that, to change tallies, to have more partisan and political Republicans involved. Meanwhile, the core limits on voting in this new law hit minorities, young, poor, and disabled citizens hardest.
It's antithetical to everything this country has stood for. This is suppression.
I have never heard of water being an illegal substance in the United States.
What evidence is there of insecure elections or voter fraud that justifies these sweeping changes? There are none. There are none.
You can draw a direct line from the Republicans' 2020 losses to this law.
Joe Biden is president-elect of the United States.
NBC News now projects Raphael Warnock as the winner in the special Georgia Senate election.
NBC News called the second of the two Georgia Senate races after hours and hours of being sure and counting and waiting for Jon Ossoff.
Joe Biden defeated Donald Trump as president. We know that. All the lies and alleged election crimes in the world could not change that. That's why there's a new president governing now, while the ex-president has returned to phoning into Fox News from Florida. But let's be clear, no single person or event can end all of Trumpism in one blow. Its mix of racism and authoritarianism that animated MAGA, that exploded at the Capitol on January 6th, and that has a clear foothold in part of the Republican Party. That is why blatant calls to overthrow an election remain popular in America right now. That is why an entire state party in Georgia can openly insult its own constituents by saying, basically, we saw you voted for our opponents, so we're going to try to take away your right to vote and arrest lawmakers who protest. This all grows out of Trumpism, and it's also broader than that contemporary political spasm. Now, if you've watched this news program for any stretch of time, you've probably seen our continued coverage of two central challenges to American democracy today. Racism, which is quite literally the opposite of equality in any political system proposing it. And two, the tools that can gut democracy from within. They range from raw abuses of power, like a filibuster that overrides majority rule, like voter suppression. But they also include the wonkier hurdles, like gerrymandering, which can dilute voters' impact legally, to the antiquated electoral college that repeatedly overrides how when more people choose Democrats for the White House, they don't get the White House. That's happened actually in 7 of the last 8 elections. But Republicans have picked 6 of the last 9 Supreme Court justices. It's not democratic, even if it is constitutional. Now, activists have often proclaimed the power of street protests by yelling, "This is what democracy looks like." In Georgia tonight, they are addressing the Republicans, but they are condemning and chanting, "This is not what real democracy looks like." The facts are in public. The spotlight is on. The next move will be up to the nation at large. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.